Hi, this is Sahid again with The Bloom Show and
Williee Armellini from Flowers and Scents.
And we have a special edition today, Marketing Roundtable, with Steve Dion, Executive Director of Cal Flowers, Eric Fernandez, General Manager of Continental Flowers, and Oscar Fernandez, Sales Manager of Equifleur Corporation. We're excited to have you, gentlemen, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Sahid.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So we'll let Willie start with the questions.
We got technical support here.
Excuse me, we're fine. Thank you.
We got it.
Yeah, we're live. Thank you. Appreciate you. Sorry about that.
All right. So you want me to start? Well, they should start telling us what they think about what they're doing, right?
All right.
Yeah, I think that's the way to start.
Cool. So let's start here. Let's start with, please tell us about your initiatives. So we'll start with you guys and your marketing initiatives.
Sure. So the promotional order, floral board, as it's called. You can check out more information about floralboard.org. I mean, we're not necessarily saying this is how we're going to market and here's the message. What we're trying to do is create a vehicle of reinvestment back into our industry.
That's awesome.
Okay, so we, I think, can all agree that we need to reinvest back in our industry to continue driving consumer demand. We've had a phenomenal year and a half since the pandemic started. You know, we kind of reinvented ourselves. We saw a great increase in consumption, and we've all benefited. But what is that 4-year, 7-year timeline? How do we look forward to it, and how are we going to make sure that we continue to drive that? So we're not looking at just what's happened in the past year, what we're looking forward to in the next 12 months or 18 months. We're looking for a generation of consumption. Awesome. And that's what the the floral board, the marketing promotion order, that's what we're trying to do, is kind of create a vehicle to create new consumers, drive awareness, benefit our industry equitably across all segments. It's universal, it's omni-channel. It's not about retail channel. It's not about mass market. It's not about e-commerce. It can benefit all. Okay, and there's also an equitable contribution by the industry players into it as well.
That's great. And I love what you just said, reinvesting.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome.
And it's not country specific either, or origin specific.
It is not. It is generic promotion of cut flowers and cut greens.
Cut flowers and cut greens. So you're mixing it up. Great.
Yeah, so the wonderful floral arrangement that we should have all been sending our wives or mothers today for Women's Day, that arrangement, that's what we'd be promoting, all the different elements in it.
Great. And Steve?
So Cal Flowers developed an initiative called That Flower Feeling. Just to put some context around it, this started back in spring it culminated at the June board meetings when we assigned a budget for it, actually started to go into the execution of the campaign. And some additional context around the floral board is it turns out that a lot of our internal discussions and our goals are directly in alignment with what floral board is doing. The generality, non-country specific, agreeable to the entire industry, flowers are the brand. So it's quite gratifying to see that you have these two completely separate, non-communicative efforts that are both really striving towards the same sets of goals and both making really significant progress along the way. So as I sit here and I look at what Cal Flowers has accomplished versus what Floral Board is doing, I just see a tremendous amount of synergies. And I think
absolutely
we've had these
conversations. We spoke about it actually. We just came from and I want to add to something that Eric said, and it's interesting. This business has been very fragmented for years, and all you've ever heard is everyone's on their own island. And even though we're always dealing with the same problems,
that's right.
And what's over the last few years, what you're hearing and you continue to hear is that we need to increase the consumption of flowers in this country.
Yep. And
we've all been looking for a way, and it doesn't matter what segment of this industry you're in, whether you're a grower, an importer, a retailer, event plan, it doesn't matter. We need to increase the consumption of flowers. It's everybody. So we were saying, how can we accomplish this? I know that we can't do it alone. You can't do it alone. He can't do it alone. So it was, can we come together? Is there a vehicle, like you said, that we can come together to make this happen? And we believe there is. Everyone's on a high right now. And what we need to do is look around the corner.
Yep.
Because at the same time that everyone's on this high, everyone's also saying until when? Well, why does it have to be an until when? Why can't we continue on this trajectory to say this industry that is a part of a beautiful product, and how can we take this and continue this? Because if we do well, you're going to do well, he's going to do well, we're all going to do well.
Yep.
But we also know that we went many years of not doing anything. Something needs to be done, and we need to find a way to make it happen.
And I think that if we look at 2017 and 18, the trends were showing a downward slope, right? And less floors, and less sales. So it's truly, how do we ride the momentum of where we are today and continue to do what got us here? So I tip my hat to both of you, and I love what you said. Own island. Now let's connect them and make a continent.
Exactly.
Let's grow that. That's awesome. Do you have any questions, George?
Well, perhaps playing devil's advocate here, obviously there is some resistance to what you want to do or are trying to do. I'm neutral in the whole game here, but some of the controversy is that obviously the California growers, which are domestic growers, are more reluctant. They're not. You've got some that are participating, I know, but Lane and company are beating a drum pretty loud about they don't want it, for whatever reasons they have described. And there's some resistance from Miami as well, saying, do we really need this? And so how are you addressing those?
Willie, I'm going to tell you this. That's okay. And it's okay to not be in favor of it right now.
Okay.
But what we're having right now is a line of communication that hasn't existed for years. I understand what happened years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That was then. Now, I've been doing this for a few years.
Yeah.
That was then. We're having conversations right now that we've never had. And I think at least there was a groundwork that was set that's not etched in stone. There's been many changes that we've made on the floorboard side, and we're looking for more. So we're looking to have more conversation to say, hey, we can't stop this. We have to continue these conversations. What is it you are not in agreement with? Let's talk. There's, and I know, and there's a lot of misinformation that's going around that say, hey, nothing's been submitted. We had to put something on paper. We had to start.
You have to start.
Yeah.
But we need this. We need that. And it's okay that we disagree. It's okay. But without this disagreement, like they say, one of us isn't needed. So it's all right to disagree. And we believe that the key, again, is that we all believe in the increase of consumption of flowers. That we all agree on.
Right.
The question is, how do we get there? And I think the more we talk about it, I think the better off we'll all be.
As we said, we have to put something on paper, and to start somewhere, because we're not going to find it all in the first shot. Oscar and I and others in the drafting committee, we've had many webinars.
12 meetings was just to start this thing.
Just to start. And we've had other outreach. We've done direct outreach, certified American grown, the Associated Specialty Cut Flower Growers. We heard issues, some of their grievances on the draft order. We said, okay, we'll work on that. That sounds reasonable. We're happy to hear that. Okay. Yeah. One of the very first things that came out, our first draft had the assessment rate at a flat 1% for both importers and domestic growers. The initial feedback was, hey, that's not fair because of this and this and this. And we said, you know what? Yeah, you're right. I have no problem changing it to make it equitable, right? We need to find a way so that there is, it's all going to hurt us. There's all going to be a little bit of a cost up front. But what we truly believe is this is not a cost. This is an investment. It's an investment with return, an investment that'll pay off over generations. But we have to do it. And we're going to have an upfront investment cost as well. How do we make it equitable? How do we make sure that those that will reap a lot of the rewards of it will also contribute their fair share? Okay. How will it also not affect the smaller folks as well? Okay, and through this promotional order, we really find it the most effective way. Now we can continue, and we should, and we will continue doing outreach and hearing from folks. Hopefully, there's going to be questions through here where we can address them and talk about them, because we'll take that back to the drafting committee. We'll hear about it. The assessment rate's been changed, the board composition's been changed. And we'll continue looking at the different elements as we go through.
And that's great that you mentioned. I appreciate that. Please, audience, feel free to ask questions. We have Jay Schwanke, one of our biggest supporters and the viewers guys as well. And he says, hey guys, thanks for the great group. Thanks Sahid and Williee Armellini. And then also amen to Oscar. He says, he truly appreciates what you're saying. So, thank you guys for, again, being here and sharing that information and being even open to questions and adjusting. I think that sometimes we get in our own way. Right. It's why not? How can it not work? We're kind of roadblocking ourselves. And you're basically saying, let's get past that.
Well, one of my favorite sayings I tell my team is a kite does not fly without an opposing wind. So bring out those high gusts. Okay. We'll fly higher together.
Hey, Oscar, maybe you can answer this one because was Buzz the Bee successful?
Buzz the Bee was, but the reason why it kind of died down was, again, there was too many oppositions and who was paying what, and I think that's what ended up killing the program, and then it went by the wayside. One thing I want to mention that's very important about this order is it's 4 years. So we believe in 4 years there's a good sample size, where there's another vote after 4 years. If it worked, and if it worked for you, you would vote obviously in favor. If we as a group, see that it wasn't working, and then but at least we gave it a shot for 4 years, and we believe that 4 years was a good sample size. But I'm going to tell you, and I'd love for Steve to talk about some things. The first meeting I've ever had with Steve was an hour ago. And we, it was very interesting, and I had never had a conversation with Steve, and we were like, we're talking the same language. And what I'd like for him to discuss are some of the numbers that he brought up in this meeting, because I think it shows you the power of what marketing does and what it could do for our entire industry.
That's awesome.
Which I'm happy to do right now.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No,
Nice to meet you, but talk.
That's all good. And it's interesting. Before I jump straight into the numbers, Cal Flowers requires a funding model for us to perpetuate the campaign that we've already launched. So we have not yet run into the same obstacles that Floral Board has run into, but we will. It's the same set of obstacles. Our approach is intended to be different. We're still in the kind of solicitation phase of having industry stakeholders help us understand what might make sense to them in terms of what's a reasonable contribution on an annual pledge basis. But we're looking at a voluntary funding model, something that we all kind of, in the meeting we just came from, benefited from the wisdom of Red Kennecott explaining why that has not worked in the past. But there was also a lot of sentiment in the room of maybe why now is the right time. And now it ties back into the numbers. So Cal Flowers was in a unique position to actually create and execute a high-level, professionally done marketing campaign. We assembled a team of various agencies. 180 Amsterdam, obviously based in Amsterdam. 180 New York is our social media team. The Designery in Los Angeles is our digital strategy team that does all the buys on YouTube and Instagram and things like that. And then we have Lucid to do market analytics. So it's 4 professional companies that are surrounding and bolstering us. So I was in Amsterdam last week, and the point was to do kind of a mid-campaign review and see where we're at. And I'm happy to report that the campaign itself, but just keep in mind, there's a brand, That Flower Feeling, and there's a campaign, which is Flowers Self-Care Made Easy. So the campaign is designed to be refreshed periodically. The brand has endurance, it stays, and the entire industry can join together under this brand, which is very generalized, very non-flower specific, but flowers are the brand. So it's the same goal that the Floral Board has set out to accomplish for obvious reasons. It's the right way to go. So at this point, after our 2 weeks of digital spend in January, and then the last week of February, bleeding into early this week, we've already hit over 20 million consumers in terms of social media engagements. We've now launched a roster of 15 influencers across Instagram and TikTok. And we are also on 6 of the world's most popular podcasts with host-read ads. One in particular is on a podcast called Call Her Daddy. She gives us a full 3 minutes, and she's one of the most popular podcasts in the world. And she went off. She loved everything about it. And so the combination of all those additional audio engagements and the influencer engagements on Instagram and TikTok gives us somewhere to the general tune of another 15 to 17 million engagements on top of that. So this early in the stage of the campaign, we're not quite 50% of the way through yet. We're already pushing tens upon tens of millions of consumer engagements, thousands of visits back to our website, thatflowerfeeling.org. And we've had numerous social media posts get amplified with consumer likes up in the 5,000 range, 7,000 range, 8,000 range. So consumers are actively engaging with us across all these social media channels. And for those who don't understand the campaign execution, we're on YouTube with pre-roll and mid-roll videos. We're on Instagram. We're on Instagram stories. We're on Pinterest with both animated tiles and still tiles. We're on Spotify. We're on the podcast I mentioned. We're on the influencers that I mentioned. So we're really, really, really out there. It's a massively comprehensive media campaign. And we've done it on Cal Flowers' budget. We created the seed money. We funded the entire thing ourselves. Our digital spend carries us about another 6 weeks in the future, at which point our initial campaign concept kind of comes to an end, and that's the moment when funding is required to keep things going. So we do have some interesting concepts that in play for the next 3 to 6 months. They're called culture bombs. They're designed to make things go viral.
Mhm.
Some really, really interesting concepts on there, like TikTok side-by-side videos and things. People who watch TikTok understand what I mean when I say that. 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't have. But anyway, we've got some exciting stuff. Slowly becoming an expert in TikTok. Let's finish. But it's working. It's really working. And then at the end of the day, this company Lucid that we hired is going to provide statistically significant measurements of whether we've affected consumer intent to buy by creating a control group and a test group for those who have and have not seen the campaign, and offering an online survey for both. As of this morning, we have 488 individual consumers in each of those test groups. We're going for 2,800. So we're at X% of our goal now. Late April, we're going to have that number, and we're going to be able to show the industry those who saw the campaign have actually changed their intent to buy in the next 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, whatever the time frame is. And you can compare it to those who didn't see the campaign, and that's going to be the tell. When we got the same data out of the Flower Council of Holland, who worked with the same agency and did a very similar sort of campaign execution, they showed a 300 million euro expansion across Germany, France, UK, and Netherlands on a $3 million spend, which is very similar to our spend. It's a 100x return on investment, and it's a 300 million euro expansion in the marketplace in 1 year.
Wow.
If we're able to replicate anything remotely close to those results in the United States, then I think it's plain to anybody who's listening right now that this is a transformative moment in the U.S. floriculture industry. We're definitely on top of something here. And guys like this that are putting their own volunteer time deserve all the respect in the world for doing what they're doing. And the industry needs to get behind cow flowers, floral board. We're working together.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
we're not opposing parties in
I
any
know.
way, shape, or form.
Exactly.
We're collaborative parties that all are working towards the same goal.
Question for you. You say analytics and you have some great numbers, so 20 something. So it was 20 million engagements. Is there any opportunity of sharing those demographic analytics with the public? Is that something you're planning to do to inform, like who's engaging with that?
We're
so
planning on
people-
sharing with the industry.
with the industry.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's what I meant to say.
We
My
will
apologies.
absolutely be sharing that in detail. When you get into there's engagement, there's all these different ways to measure.
Of
Yeah,
course,
the more
of
you
course.
pay, the more engagements you get. So it's kind of if you stick on the top line, it's it's not an important number.
Mhm.
But as the campaign goes on and the professional agencies we're working with can start to deep dive, and they can tell you the difference between Instagram and TikTok and who clicked through and
The age of
which
the group,
YouTube
what
videos
city,
the pre-rolls are running on, what those areas of interest were. There's
Exactly.
all sorts of areas we're going to get into. And we're going to come back some really, really granular data
that's
that's
gonna be
new to the flower industry that we didn't
Yes.
previously understand about this demographic that we've targeted, which is age 25 to 39, skewing heavily towards women
Yeah.
with a household income of $60,000 and up.
Exactly.
And what's great about that, going over the numbers, is that some of the questions that we kept hearing during our webinars, where's the marketing? Like, what is it going to look like? What numbers are you going to reach? And we really couldn't give that information yet, because the reality is that we have to form a board before a board can decide how this is going to work.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, here comes the flower feeling
with the answer.
with the answer. And we said,
Done.
there it is.
Yeah.
That's why it was, I mean, the synergy is just unbelievable to say, hey, there it is.
Yeah,
This is the power of what we're trying to do right there.
Yeah, that webinar you had, it was, I scratched my head at the end saying, wait a minute, they want that to happen, and they just made it happen.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, look, we're all sitting together in the room right now.
But like,
Really,
yeah,
don't
yeah,
worry. We spoke
that's
before all
awesome.
that was happening. We know, we're on the same page, and I mean, we did start at different paths, and we're kind of coming together at a perfect point,
Yeah.
really. But yeah,
Let me take
it's
a
got to give
question.
it up to Cal Flowers, because really the creative, the messaging, it's everything
It's
that
great.
we want, that we have in our minds, and it is already great for the industry.
Thank you.
So we have a quick question from Daniel Sanchez from South Laurels is, do you plan to incorporate a retail voice in the process? If so, which way?
No, that's a great, well, for at least on the floral board, we actually, part of our outreach brought that, had that question and had that thought, and we said, yes, we do want a retail voice. The board composition in the current draft, in the last draft that was published, said, okay, there's 12 seats.
Mhm.
It was going to be 6 seats for importers, and 6 seats for domestic growers. In fact, their very initial drop was, I think, 7.5. We said, hey, let's make it 6.6 because, we're in this together, it's 50-50. But in a drafting committee meeting, we said, you know what, both sides, we gave up a seat. Okay, so we went down to 5 and 5, created 2 open slots. We made those non-voting slots, and one of those slots would be for traditional retail florist, and another slot would be for a mass market retailer. Because the concept and the thought behind it is we said we want to enrich the discussion at the board level of floor board, at the main board level, of what are the front lines experiencing? How do we acquire new consumers? What are the trends? How do we bring that right back into the investment decisions that the board is going to be making? So, because we need that up front. As a grower, importer, distributor, we have some insight, but we don't have the same insight at that front line. So the best generals listen to their soldiers at the front of the battle, right? So that's kind of what we're looking for. So we did create that. We heard that in our outreach, and we incorporated it right back into it. Now we've made it non-voting, so there's no question about those are retailers that support importers, or those are retailers that support domestic growers, or there's still 50-50 as far as the voting part. There was thought, well, there are, if this is enacted floral board, if it's passed, there's all sorts of different committees that are formed. There could be a committee for different concepts of the campaigns and such, and the structure and the management of the board. So we said, well, we could have retailers on different committees. We said, no, we want retailers right at that 12-seat table. Okay, to have, to enrich that discussion when the main decisions are being made.
Well, something that comes to mind as we're talking about this, it's if I was a California grower, I might think I'm being double dipped here, because if sooner or later you're going to come looking for funds from whoever.
Yes, we are.
And you're looking for funds from a similar pool of people. And I was just wondering if that might be an objection. I don't know how we counteract.
It's a really interesting question. It's kind of a cart before the horse type thing, because one perspective is, if the voluntary funding model is successful, is there still a need for an assessed funding model? Or another way is a voluntary funding model just a bridge to get to the assessed funding model, and let the industry see what happens there's a certain time frame that the floor board is required to work with. It's not their choice. And so if it turns out that we can continue to execute at an acceptable level and keep it out there in front of you as consumers, and people understand what's happening to their own bottom line as a result of consumption, that may be what ultimately compels people towards the assessed model in order to make permanent the funding. Because in a voluntary funding model, permanence is an elusive thing. So none of us know how this is going to turn out. The beauty is that the conversations are happening now, and they're happening all over the industry now. And so I think we're going to find that people have clear preferences one way or the other. I can tell you that Cal Flowers does not actually have a preference. The reason we're leaning towards the voluntary funding model is because it's low-hanging fruit, and we want the campaign to continue now immediately. 2 months, don't let it die. And that's the only route that we have to follow. But we don't take a position on whether it's the correct one or not. It's just the necessary one for us right now. And we will consistently be mindful, as the board makes decisions about this, of not interfering with other efforts going on in the industry. That's never been our intent. Never.
Really double dipping, we wouldn't want to overburden folks. We want to make sure that what they're investing back into the industry, they're getting that return, and it's fair to them. The timeline is very important. When we look at timeline, Steve mentioned, hey, we can start in a month, 2 months. All right. For the floral board to be enacted, it's a very long process.
Yeah, is it 4 years or something?
Well,
No,
4 years once it's enacted.
Okay.
So to get enacted,
You submit.
Yes.
First, you have to submit the order. And that can take a year before someone even looks at it. Then there's chances for people to send in, comment on it and stuff like that. And then it can go. So you're looking you could go anywhere from 1 to 3 years before it is either voted yay or nay. And then after that, once it's enacted, then that's when the 4-year period starts.
So really, we're looking at from here on out. Let's add 3 years to 2022. So we're looking at 2025 to 2029 as maybe the time frame when the money is being assessed, collected, and reinvested. So that flower feeling, send over your voluntary donations, right? Because at whatever funding level it gets, it's like a pilot, right? It's a pilot for generic promotion back to our industry. Just like how we have in Hollywood, right? A pilot for a TV show, and then let's say when it gets syndication. So that's what we're looking forward to
Okay.
doing. And then after that, let's say floorboard is enacted and is successful and it's going well and all. There's still opportunity, for example, different markets to say, you know what, let's add a little bit more funding to get some additional marketing investment in our area, in our territory. And that can, there might be another way of it dovetailing
More
with
regional.
what Cal Flowers is doing.
We have a question in here from, and I think it's important to get the questions. that you
Absolutely.
answered. So we're highly encouraging the questions. Thank you again, Danny, and thank you, City Sense, and thank you, Jay Schwanke. So City Sense says, as cost continues to increase from grower to transport, how much of the marketing involves and consumer education of the new reality, which is a concern for florists versus larger mass market companies? Do you understand that question?
I have a few responses on that.
Okay.
When consumption rises, it's the best way to combat cost increases.
Mhm.
There's a price cliff out there somewhere, and we don't know where it exists. Nobody knows exactly where it exists. But with all the increases in cost that we're all experiencing in our personal lives, our business lives, and that sort of thing,
Yes.
there's going to come that moment in time when it's going to affect consumption. And that's exactly the moment where you need the engine of marketing working in your favor to combat that. But the other thing I would say about that specifically, and this is moving away from marketing and a little bit just a comment about the one of the cool aspects of our industry, is your brick and mortar retail florists and a lot of different variations of florists that are out there, because there's so many exciting flower outlets out there right now. In a time of rising prices, when Lay's potato chips has rising prices, you get fewer chips in the bag. But in the world of flowers, if they're working with a proven designer who's engaging with this consumer, they can create something at virtually any price point that is fantastic and meets the emotional requirements that purchaser came in with.
Okay.
The question is, are we as an industry bringing that consumer to the retail florist? And that's what we think our role is with this marketing. And the angle that we chose was self-care. So that is just one sliver. But, if we receive proper funding 2 years from now, we're going to run the self-care angle for roughly 2 years. Is in kind of the marketing world, that's a perfect range for a marketing asset to last.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be ready with the next one, and it won't be self-care. It'll be a completely different segment. And we have no idea what that is yet, but that's the way this whole cycle is designed to work. So if the industry collectively can keep those consumers walking in the retail florist, walking in the grocery store,
Okay.
we've done our job.
Yeah.
At that point, the front line of the industry is so good and so creative and so talented, they're going to find ways to overcome the price barriers and objections that are out there.
And one thing I'd like to add as well is the interesting thing is that you keep hearing, oh, so-and-so is going to benefit. So-and-so is going to benefit. And then I ask the question, right now, we're all benefiting from what's going on in the flower business. Doesn't matter if you're a mass market, doesn't matter if you're a grower, an importer, domestic grower, a wholesaler. It doesn't, we are all doing, we've all had a good run here going with flowers.
Mm-hmm.
So what it showed me, and it should show the industry, is as consumption was raised, everybody won. Everybody won.
Exactly.
So it wasn't about one segment over the other. And I think that's very, very important. And like he said, the marketing, the brand is flowers and it's generic. And if this doesn't show us all that, that when this happens in our industry, we all win, then I really don't know what else will. And I think this happened at the perfect time.
Great example.
It really happened at the perfect time.
Certainly, if you look at it purely numbers and you look at a zero-sum game, price inflation can dampen consumption. It does it across all items, across all different buying choices.
Yes.
We're not looking at trying to change habits or choices between retail and supermarket, retail floors, supermarkets, and how they look at, well, how much does a 12-cent bouquet cost this year versus last year? No, our goal here is how do we get the average consumer out there to spending their dollars on other housewares or knickknacks or whatever they're spending their dollars on, buy flowers because they see a reason and a benefit of the flowers. They're not counting cents per stem like we all do, and we all do very well. No, they're looking at emotions. They're looking at a buying decision, and they're not always looking at it that way. How we all in the industry are looking at it. They're saying, well, I just spent $4.99 on an iPhone app because it's really helpful for me. But do I know that, hey, I can spend, $12 more or $15 more and have a really nice bouquet that makes me feel better when I get home, I see it on the kitchen table. So we're trying to use our funds here, right, to reinvest in our business.
Yep.
So we change those buying habits out there. And then, then we're not talking about whether the benefit is going to a mass market channel, retail floors or such. We're taking from the other buying choices out there.
So we're lucky to have another question, which is awesome. It makes us ask less questions. So it's awesome. Is there any way, and this is from Daniel Sanchez again, is there any way to speed the process along on getting the program established? Is this something that could be advocated for at SAF Congressional Action Day? Are you guys working with SAF?
Well, I'll answer that because we just came from a meeting that SAF was a part of. So again, all of the different organizations in the flower industry are talking. So everyone is saying that, everyone's at the table. Everyone has a seat at the table to continue these discussions. So we're trying to find anywhere that we can bring this up and talk about it. I think we always learn more. And again, I'm going to go back to saying, we know not everyone agrees with it, but they're all opportunities for all of us to get to know each other better and to understand what the end game is. And at the end of the day, is how do we sell more flowers to more people more often for more money? And we really believe this is a way to happen. So yes, any chance we get, whether it's at an SAF convention, that somewhere that you're having a meeting, whatever it is, we always try to bring it up.
And is there a way to speed it up? What we first need to do is we need to get to a submission point. So we continue doing these types of events to hear questions, get some feedback, make those adjustments. But there's a lot of things that you can do right now. If you're in support, as before this goes actually to the USDA, write a letter to your local Congress rep, right, and tell them, hey, you want something that benefits your business, your district. We think that this is great because this is not something that's specific to South Florida, not something specific to California or whatever. This is a national program for all 50 states, and our citizens in all 50 states benefit from it.
And then when it says to SAF Congressional Action Day, and I know Daniel's asking because he's going, I'm also attending, is that something they could advocate for?
I'll be there as well. I'll be attending.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah, there'll be conversations, and again, the reason why I think it's important that we have these conversations, like I said, there's been a lot of misinformation that's been talked about. That's why these forums are so important. So we have the opportunity to ask the questions so that we're all informed. And you're at the end of the day, you're going to make your own decision on whether you think that, flower filling is good and it's got some legs to it, whether floral board is good or whatever it is, or how we come together, how we make this happen. But all those venues are areas, are places where we can definitely have discussions on these types of topics.
Right. And then we have another question here from Jay Swanky. And thank you so much for all the questions. Again, please keep it up. We encourage that. Question for Steve. Would it be possible to do a generic DAT flower feeling promo on national TV nationwide that reaches 113 million households each week, maybe in the near future?
That is more than possible. That's actually guaranteed to happen. Thank you, Jay, for bringing that up. What he's referring to, that was very clever there.
I know, very good move, Jay.
So Cal Flowers has been a kind of foundational sponsor for the Life in Bloom television show that Jay has created, and we're huge fans. I mean, Jay is engaging
How can you
our industry's consumers in such a remarkable way, such an incredibly engaging way. And so this year, both Albertsons Company and Cal Flowers stepped forward with some we have kind of
we posted about
pre-video and posted a bumper. I'm not sure exactly the technical term for it. Jay can help us out. But through many conversations with Jay, we were able to ensure that the pod, as it's referred to, opens up with the words "that flower feeling." And what Jay is sharing with you is the metrics in terms of how many households that's going to hit, which is in addition to anything else that we're doing. So it's not a that flower feeling ad per se, because we were operating under the context of the requirements of public television, but we did get the wording in there, which does create a nice hook backwards towards the brand itself, and may create an opportunity in the future, hopefully, to kind of work with APT Public Television to see if we can give a little bit stronger hook as time goes on and continue to build more kind of endurance for the That Flower Feeling brand.
So we've been lucky to have co-hosts today. So we not just us, we have other co-hosts. So Jay Schwanke also says it's Underwriter Pods, he says.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Jay.
Well played.
Chime in whenever you want, Jay. And then Jay's also saying that flower feeling at home, at work, or anytime. So
That's
just
exactly what the pod says.
That's awesome.
So we're very excited about our partnership with Jay on that. Very excited.
Yeah, and you should be, because he's doing a great thing.
He certainly
Very
is.
good.
Certainly is.
We all should support him. One of the criticisms that we hear, of course, that's popped up, you've heard it, that Queens has the same vote as a sunflower grower that has an acre over here or something. And while that sounds awful, I get it, because otherwise Queens would have 1 million votes and they could control it, right? If it was based on volume or something, or dollars. So I get that part.
No, it's, we need the support of companies like Queens, Sunshine Bouquet, and Elite. And there's definitely downside to them that they don't have that power of the vote, right? But they also won't benefit if they get the rest of the industry involved and supporting it. So, we look to them to also say, yeah, we support this. We realize that, we're large players and we're going to benefit as well, but we want this also to benefit all the other players, right? And we're, yes, for it to pass, because if they have votes in relation to their dollars, okay, then the rest of the industry is not going to vote for it, because they're going to say it's controlled by 5 votes.
Yeah,
And then, so we're caught here in a rock and a
we have to
hard
get
place. How do we
pressure.
actually move this forward? So, we went with the democratic process. How do we elect presidents, right? It's
one
person,
one vote.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's what we have to ask them. So, we're looking for their support. It is a concession on their part. But it's a noble concession, one for the greater good of all,
Well,
and they will benefit as well.
They're importers, so they would be paying under the concept, right?
Absolutely.
But I'm also in belief that the larger the company, the more they have to gain as well.
Yeah.
So, when you look at it, you could say, I'm sure some of these larger companies have a much larger marketing budget than a smaller company. And so if this does what we believe it will do, they're going to benefit just as much as everyone else, and to obviously a larger scale.
The growers really have no say in this.
No.
The growers, you mean
The importer of record on the
Importer
import
of
side.
record does.
Whoever
I'm
the
saying
importer
that
record.
The growers in Bogota, Colombia, and all
They
that.
have
America,
They have nothing to do.
Amsterdam,
Makes sense.
or Amsterdam, or Holland, or anywhere around the world,
Yeah.
right there, they're not assessed, and they would not have a seat on the board or vote for the order. So importers of record, they're U.S. based entities,
Okay.
and of course domestic growers.
I know you can't speak for AFIF, but in general, what's the general feeling from importers? Are they more supportive, or?
The only thing I got to say is this, and I think we're trying to gather as much information as we can. We did have a large gathering of members of AFIF and non-members of AFIF that were invited. We had it at the Intercontinental, and it was basically just an informational session to discuss this. As far as where everyone stands, it's very difficult. I mean, I wouldn't even want to say it's 50-50 or it's 80-20. I don't know.
But that event was great because there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of
Yeah.
misunderstandings in the
Assumption.
timeline of what is happening. I mean, okay, our pallet costs are going up. Are you telling me that we're gonna have an assessment rate tomorrow? No, hold on one second. There's no assessment rate coming in here. This is the timeline. It's gonna take some time. This is how we look at. This is with the dollars you invest in, here's the return. In our internal analysis, we see a very good return on all sides. Because of, and we had a great model. We said, look at the last year, how have our businesses all benefited with that drive, that increase in consumption. Well, that's how this will pay for itself. So, we had a good conversation at that meeting. It was an industry-wide meeting. It was not just limited to AFIF members, any importer based here in Miami, and we put out, we gave them some history, the timeline, how things came together, why, what was the kind of root of how we land on different decisions.
Hey, Steve, there was California had a marketing board, right? Well,
that was through the CCFC.
CCFC.
That was the CCFC.
That was it,
correct.
right?
And that the most recent referendum
Didn't pass.
continue on. And so now they've refocused. I don't want to speak on their behalf. I've never been involved with that association. I'm not a flower farmer myself. I know obviously a lot of members of the association. We have a tremendous amount of overlap. But when the CCFC, which was the California Cut Flower Commission, did not pass its most recent referendum, then efforts were redirected to create a much more nationally representative organization for domestic growers. So they pulled in all the greens growers, in the Northwest and Florida and that sort of thing, the peony growers in Alaska, and everybody else. I don't want to leave anybody else out of that conversation. They seem to be doing a great job. They've got some new executive leadership. Cameron King, had plenty of interactions with him. He's an extremely bright guy with a great depth of experience, and it seems like they've got their interests moving in the right direction in terms of domestic farms.
So they don't have it's not a mandatory process
Not anymore. It's
not
voluntary.
voluntary.
Yeah.
And it's continuing to go, which suggests that it was successful.
That's a fine line to walk.
Yeah.
They've become much more inclusive. It's a much larger group that they can tap into now.
Okay.
But I have literally no knowledge of the inner workings of how their fees work, their assessments, what their service delivery model is. I don't know any of those things. So I'm really hesitant to say much more on that topic.
Okay. Fair enough.
I would suggest that you maybe consider a talk with Cameron.
Well, we
Yeah, I
invited
think
him
it'd be
here.
really
He just
good.
couldn't get here.
He couldn't get here, and we couldn't figure out the logistics to
Okay.
get him
Okay.
here virtually. So
Understood.
we tried our best, but
Okay.
maybe we'll do it again, right? I think the more
Steve's very tech savvy, by the way. You could have asked him. You could have figured it out.
Cool.
As of 2 weeks ago.
but in reality, maybe we do this again.
Sure,
I think it'll
absolutely.
be great to check in again in 6 months. or
Because your
something
process
like
is
that.
ongoing. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. Matter of fact, I think the Cal Flowers Fun and Sun Convention could be great timing. for
Yes,
that,
we are
because by
doing
that time, we
the
will have our
couch
metrics.
together. Actually, we're doing the couch interview, so maybe
That's
that
right.
could
That's
be
right.
that could be a part of it, or something of that nature. To you're
Yeah, we can
figuring
get the
that
group back
out. but-
together. We'll have a lot more
you'll have
detail
more detail
to talk about at that time. We'll
Exactly.
understand how our funding efforts have gone. So yeah, I'm quite excited. To me, in my mind, just from a psychological standpoint, that's kind of a seminal moment. You're getting into late August. You're getting into the next busy season cycle. A lot of chips will fall between then and now, both for Full Board and that flower fueling effort. And I think we're all just going to know a heck of a lot more. And I sit here very optimistic that we're going to see some really positive movement towards these marketing goals. And I would expect that at that moment in time, we're going to be entering a period, it's kind of celebratory period, that we maybe knock the first few obstacles out of the way. It sure would feel good if the industry can come together at that time and kind of agree that we've crossed the first set of hurdles.
Mhm.
We've maintained this marketing campaign. We've maintained the discussion around Full Board and the assessment, and we've kind of pushed the ball further down the road. That would feel like a real win to me.
And then our final question. Do you have a final question? I have one more question.
I just applaud what you all are
Yep.
trying to do. What y'all did at that presentation is awesome, which was, like you say, it's the perfect way to say, this can do that, right?
Yeah.
This can help you do that, and you're out there proving that it can work. So that's a beautiful thing. So I don't think the timing could have been. I have to admit, I was confused when I first heard about it all, because I was like, sounds like they're heading down the same path, and they're going to be competing for the same dollars. And maybe you are in a sense, but in the grand scheme of things, it's beautiful. The synergy is just perfect.
That's
Yeah.
awesome, and I love the fact
Good
that you
luck.
guys just met an hour
Thank you.
ago, and
Yeah.
you could see the synergy, and you respect each other highly, and respect each other's initiative as well. So I really appreciate that. I do have a final question. Kind of the first one, I was going to ask you, how can you collaborate together in these initiatives? But I think you're showing it right here, right? You're
We're
showing
doing
it.
it,
You've
yeah.
said it already. So kind of just a nice way to wrap it up. And I'd love to hear from all three of you. Is if you had a magic wand, what would you want to achieve with these initiatives? What is that dream end goal?
What is that dream end goal? Is the American consumer, the general American consumer, wants to have a bouquet of flowers and arrangement on their kitchen table when they come home every night.
Oh, wait, sorry.
For me, it's that flowers front of mind to the American consumer. And like I said earlier, sell more flowers to more people more often for more money. This is, I think someone's been given, someone made a comment once that we've been given this gift.
Yeah.
And the gift is what's occurred over the last couple of years. How can we keep this so that the legacy stays behind,
Yes.
so that years when other people come into the industry, that you've already let the ground, you've laid the groundwork for them to continue in this wonderful industry that is great. And we just want to be able to continue that word and say, hey, look at this beautiful product. And you're hearing it from people that didn't buy it before. And during, when they were in their homes and they would say, I'm walking by my dining room table, there's a beautiful bouquet of flowers. You know, I've been doing this, and I keep saying this, I've been doing this for 27 years, and my friends still have no idea what it is I do for a living. But they all knew, and they were all buying flowers during this time. And I don't know anyone that doesn't smile when given one flower, let alone a bouquet.
So I have a hashtag, and I say hashtag flower smiles.
There you go.
Right, because you always see a smile when you go flower. How about yourself, Steve?
For me, I'm a. This may sound sappy, but I'm a true believer in the positive emotional benefits of flowers in people's lives. And if through our collaborative marketing efforts, we can get more Americans enjoying more flowers more often, then I think as an industry, we've achieved our aspirational goal.
Mm-hmm.
The business benefits that follow from that, the increases in the capacity to innovate and expand infrastructure in the industry and see new retail outlets, kind of develop and as they will. Those are all additional side benefits per se that as business owners, we sit there and we'll obviously want to focus on that. At the end of the day, we have an amazing product. And if we can reach the levels that we see in most other first world countries of flower consumption, we're doing our fellow Americans a massive favor because there's so many that simply do not understand the positive emotional benefits.
So we have some final remarks here. So Jay's coming up and saying, such a great industry we have with such great people. Thank you all for all you do. Great panel and great presentation. So thank you again.
Thank you, Jay.
Coming from Jay, that means a lot.
He's a man. He's the man. And then Daniel Sanchez says, overall consumption increase helps everyone. I've supported this from the beginning and will continue to do so. Thank you to you and all for continuing to push forward. And then 1234 says, much respect to all of you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Those are great comments. Really, really appreciate that.
And
And great questions throughout.
Yes.
Awesome.
So thanks for helping us co-host. So I appreciate it. Thank you for helping us co-host. Thank you so much to you guys. It truly, we see what's happening and we love putting this together so that you create a voice and there's more information out there and people could ask those sometimes difficult questions. And thank you for being willing to take those questions as well. We truly appreciate it. However, we can be of any help.
Well, you've been a huge
we're here
help
to help.
today. I mean, you're
so much.
doing a fantastic job, both of you, of amplifying this conversation. It's a really, really important and timely conversation.
Yeah.
So I think I speak for all three of us just to say thank you as well for providing the platform.
Absolutely.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thank you.
you so
All right.
much.
Perfect.
See you guys later.
Thank you.
All right.